There's something that nobody is telling you about making progress, and it is holding you back from making progress. But on this week's episode of the Exercises Health Podcast, we want to talk about exactly what that is. We're going to cue our introduction and dive right into this conversation. Hey, welcome back, everybody, to the Exercise is Health Podcast, brought to you by Muscle Activation Schaumburg. We're your hosts, Charlie
and Julie.
Today, we are discussing this idea of making progress, of seeing improvement, of seeing change in the direction that you're wanting to go, feeling like you are getting closer and closer to reaching your goals. There's a lot of misconceptions about this process of making progress, and there are some things that, quite frankly, we're not told at all about making progress. Today, that's exactly what we want to talk with you about. We want to let you know that if what we are discussing today is of interest to you, is something that you want to start taking action on, and you would like our help, like our guidance in helping you to do that, it's exactly what we can do with you at Muscle Activation Schaumburg using muscle activation techniques. All you have to do to see our availability and get on our schedule is go to www.matschaumburg.com. On our website, there's a big green button you can click that says get started, and you can schedule yourself for your initial MAT consultation and assessment. So there's this quote that, Julie, you told me a while back that you got from somewhere. There's this idea that it says progress looks like nothing until it looks like everything. Progress looks like nothing until it looks like everything. And when you told me that, to me it's like, wow, that's a really profound statement, because it is true on multiple levels. Like, we think that progress is going to be this linear thing of like, okay, well, we put in one input and we get in an output, and we put in two inputs and we get out two outputs, and that's just how it's going to be every day, every day from the day that we start until the day that we decide to stop. But the truth of the matter is, progress really isn't like that. And unfortunately, because of that, it stops people from making the progress that they're wanting to make.
You're totally right, Charlie. And I honestly feel like a lot of people even do acknowledge that, yeah, progress, might not be linear, yet our emotions still get caught up when it's not linear, right? Like, anytime you're working on a goal and it's not like just like what you were saying, I put A in and I get B out, and it's not like that. It's not this equation that we can solve. It can get really hard for a lot of people, almost like, am I even making progress towards my goal? Am I even doing the right steps towards my goal? And the important thing is that you realize that progress looks like nothing until it looks like everything. And there's different phases that we see people in that will determine like what you can expect happening as you work on your goal.
Exactly, because the truth about progress is, in order to get started to see progress, you actually have to put in a disproportionate amount of work up front in order to start to see some kind of noticeable change within how your body feels, how your body functions, your strength, your conditioning, whatever it is with your body. Like, if you're starting from zero, you're going to have to put in a lot of work, a lot of effort over a long period of time before you can look back and say, oh yeah, wow, like, I'm definitely feeling stronger. Oh yeah, I'm definitely moving better. Oh wow, yeah, my conditioning is definitely better, okay? And unfortunately, because of how long it takes to start to see that change, to start to see that improvement, it stops a lot of people. And it's like, oh gosh, this just isn't working for me. Oh, my body just needs something different. Oh, this is just, not what my body is just isn't right for my body. And what we have seen time and time again is, when you can stick with something, whether it's your strength training or whether it's, your cardio workouts or whatever it is, it's always most difficult at the beginning. Because one, you're creating a new habit and you're trying to create a new change. And two, because your body is going to actually be resistant to adapting, is resistant to those changes. It's like you provide the stimulus and your body's like, yeah, but it's been like 20, 30 years before we've seen, since we've seen any stimulus like that. Do we really need to get stronger? Do we really need to, build more mitochondria in our cells to produce more energy so you can feel more physically fit? Or is this going to be a one-off thing? And then you do it again and your body's like, yeah, but again, it's been like 20, 30 years. Like, do we really need to do this? because those changes are expensive for your body to make. But you do it again and again and again and again. And eventually your body says, okay, this thing that you keep doing, this stimulus that keeps getting applied to the body, that doesn't seem to be going away. So we are going to have to adapt to this. We're going to have to start getting stronger. We're going to have to start getting more physically fit, better conditioned, and everything like that. And that's when you start to see your progress just take off. And it's really cool when people can kind of bridge that initial period of feeling like I'm putting in the work, I'm putting in the effort, I'm most excited at this time, and nothing's happening. And they can get through that time period and still keep their excitement, still keep their consistency. And then all of a sudden they get to the other side of that and they're like, whoa, now I'm way stronger. Now I feel my conditioning going up. Now all the work that I've put in, I'm seeing the results of that. But it doesn't happen right away. It takes time.
That's right. I was just going through this period. I know you guys have probably been listening to, if you've listened to some of our other podcasts, I've brought up working on different strengths that I've been working on. And I remember at the beginning of the year, I started for the first time ever regularly lifting with like a bar on my back. And I remember telling Charlie, because he was asking me, how's it going and things like that. And I remember telling him, like, I just feel like my back is weak. Like it doesn't hurt, but it doesn't feel like I can do more. And, like there was definitely, something that my body wasn't quite used to. And I remember having thoughts like, well, maybe the way I was training before was just fine. Maybe I don't actually need to get stronger to be able to do this. Maybe this isn't like, all those like self-doubt, like, should I really be doing this? And then it wasn't all that like exciting because I spent so many weeks at the same weight. Like I was like, how can I be in my mid-30s and be doing this for 4 weeks now? I haven't really changed my weights that much because still like my midsection feels like it's not like getting up to speed. And then I don't even know what happened. But then I was like, I can lift way more now. I can do so much more weight and I'm not feeling my back. And there wasn't even like a moment, but it just happened. And so now that I got through that with all those like self-doubt and that feeling of like, wow, like I really wish my weights were going up, but they're not going up. Like it looked like nothing, right? My progress literally looked like nothing. And the only one thing that I could lean on was, okay, I'm going to do the reps. And I remember Charlie saying after reviewing one of the workouts, he was like, well, we got to ask your body to change somehow or something like that. And it's so true because if you don't keep offering that stimulus, hey, you got to change. Body, you got to change. Hey, you need to change. And you keep asking it to change, even though it doesn't seem like anything is changing, you're going to notice all of a sudden you're going to see that up curve. And we almost kind of forget that it was hard in the beginning once you get to this next phase. But that first phase, it takes a lot of upfront work with very minimal like positive feedback of like, wow, my back feels stronger, or wow, I'm lifting so much more, or, wow, like everything in life is so much easier. You're not really getting that positive feedback like you would expect that you would have. And it's just a lot of upfront work right in the beginning.
Exactly. It's so true. And then once you can put in that upfront work, once you can get through that period, like you've experienced, Julie, like I've experienced, like so many of our clients have experienced, then you get to kind of like the middle part. And the middle part is like so much fun because it feels like every workout I'm getting stronger. Every single workout, I'm feeling as physically fit, if not, more physically fit than it was before. It's like every single time I come in and work out, I feel like I'm making progress. And that's when it gets really fun. And that's when it's like, oh wow, yeah, like this is something I want to keep doing. Here's the thing with this middle portion though, is what ends up tripping people up is they're making progress. They're feeling good. They're doing everything that they're staying consistent with it, everything like that. But they forget to keep challenging themselves. They forget to keep up their intensity. They forget to keep up their frequency. They forget to push themselves for as long as they were pushing themselves before. In those early stages, when they were just trying to get things going and feeling like nothing was happening, and all of a sudden they're on the other side of that and they're like, oh wow, it's like every single week, like, I can go up 5 pounds on my lifts and, like my conditioning feels easier, like I'm feeling myself getting better and better. And then something switches in our brain because we're not so desperately trying to get out of that place where we were. We're like, oh yeah, I'm going in the right direction. Kind of put things on cruise control a little bit and kind of say, oh yeah, no, I don't need to push myself as hard as I was pushing myself before. What, this is 5 pounds more than I did last week. So like, obviously, like I'm pushing myself harder. It's like, yeah, but are you pushing yourself as hard as you were before relative to like what your body can do right now? And so we tend to put it on cruise control a little bit. And that's where people start to hit these plateaus. That's where people start to regress almost and start to drop off. And then we start to, put the blame and the focus elsewhere. And so in this middle part, when you're feeling it get easier, truth of the matter is that's when you want to make it more challenging for yourself. That's when you want to make it harder. And that's when you want to double down on your consistency. Okay? You're making your progress. This is what you have worked so hard to get to this place where things are feeling like everything's going in the right direction. That's where you lock in on your workouts and you're like, I'm not missing them. I'm sticking with it. And I'm going to keep pushing myself with each and every workout. Because when you can do that, that's when you see some really, really, really big gains. And these big gains that you can see during this time are so important for you to attain because long term, they're going to raise your ceiling much, 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 much higher. And the higher your ceiling gets over the long term, the higher your floor becomes over the long term. Meaning, like, as you get into your 70s, your 80s, and beyond, your regression down doesn't have to be as steep because you were able to push yourself and raise your ceiling so high during this middle period when you were really seeing a lot of gains.
That's right. So this middle period is where you have to be careful of like getting comfortable. This is when a lot of people get comfortable. I think a lot of people in the beginning, people start big things like a fitness journey, usually because of like fear, like, wow, I am so scared because my hip is in this condition and it's only getting worse, or my knee, whatever it is. Or excitement, right? Like you're chasing after a goal. Like, wow, I just saw this person do this and I didn't know people could do that. Now I want to do, you're excited, you're chasing a goal, or you're running away from something that has like, oh my gosh, I didn't know that was going to happen to me, right? But in this middle area is where comfort sets in. A lot of people work really hard through that first part and then they take that trip. That was the trip of a lifetime. And like, wow, I can't believe I did those crooked stairs. And I can't believe, I did this and that on my trip. Or, wow, I went through all this stuff. And this year I got on my hands and knees and gardened and I was great. You're starting to enjoy a lot of those strength benefits. But this is where sometimes we expect that the weights should get easy. And you're like, Julie, no one expects that. But everyone does. Because you know what everyone says? Why isn't this easier yet? And that's the big thing where it's like, okay, I've been shoulder pressing for 6 months now. Why isn't this easy yet? Because it's literally supposed to be hard. If it's not hard and you're not trying to push to the next thing, then you're losing ground. You're losing strength. So you should always be trying to push at your upper level. And so this middle section where we're like enjoying all the strength changes, you're in a rhythm, you're not like super weak because you've already been doing it for a chunk of time. It's not the comfort area. It's not the place where we're trying to stay comfortable. This is the place where you want to keep pushing yourself so you don't slip back into phase one. So always remember that the center phase where you're cruising along. You still want to be cruising along with a lot of challenge and a lot of stimulus from your workouts so that you can keep building that strength and keeping your strength.
Exactly. And then eventually you may get to a place where your current abilities are getting closer and closer to what your body's physical capabilities are. Meaning like you are truly maxing out your potential. And the closer you get to that line of completely maxing out your potential, the more incremental and actually the slower the progress becomes. And it kind of almost becomes like it was back at the beginning, where during the middle part, you might see progress from 1 week to the next. As you get closer to your maximum, you might see progress over the course of 6 months, over the course of 12 months. It might be 2 years before you see something actually bump up a little bit closer, and you have to work so incredibly hard over those course of that 6 to 24 months to see any kind of change in the right direction. And that, for a lot of people, becomes extremely challenging. Now, truth of the matter is, most people don't get to that level. Most people don't get into that really high elite physical condition where they are nearing their maximum capabilities. Most people ebb and flow between feeling like no progress is happening to all of a sudden progress coming in leaps and bounds, and then getting comfortable and going back to feeling like no progress is being made, and then progress coming in leaps and bounds, okay? That's usually the cycle for most people. But should you break through that cycle, just understand that the next step of this whole thing is progress slows way, way down, all right? But it's not because you're not making progress. It's because you are so close to what your body is physically capable of that it will take a tremendous amount of effort over a much, much longer period of time to get at just a little bit more output from your system, just a little bit more conditioning, just a little bit more speed, just a little bit more strength, whatever it is, okay? So for the vast majority of people, that's not something you're gonna be tapping into. You're gonna be cycling through those first two stages, and so understand kind of the process that happens during those first two stages. Because here's the truth of the matter. Regardless of your age, you can keep making progress with your body for long, long, long periods of your life. All right? Regardless of your age, you can keep making progress with your body for long, long, long periods of your life. But at some point within our lifespan, we hit a point where maintaining where we're at, ends up being a form of progress, all right? Because our body is just going to decline if we're not trying as hard as we can to at least maintain where we're at, all right? And the higher you get your ceiling, the higher you get your physical capabilities, the easier it's going to be able to maintain like more of an ability compared to what you're wanting to do in your daily life, all right? It doesn't mean that it'll be easier to maintain that uppermost ability. You have to work really, really hard to maintain that uppermost ability, but you will be able to have an easier time maintaining your physical capabilities versus what you're wanting to do in your daily life, all right? So for example, like if the things that you're wanting to do in your daily life require you to be able to, I don't know, for example, like leg press 150 pounds and you get your leg press up to 350 pounds, well, now you have 200 pounds of margin there that, you know, you can steadily decline over the course of 20 or 30 years and still feel like you can do everything you want in life because you're only required to have an output of 150 pounds. So that's, you know, kind of a bad example, but hopefully it clarifies in your head what I'm trying to articulate is this idea that the higher you get your ceiling, the more margin you have between where you are and what is being required of you on a daily basis to do the things you want to do. And so you get to keep doing those things for longer then.
So there's one thing you really need to focus on no matter what level or what phase of this consistency continuum that you are on. And that is taking the right actions for your body. Because for forever and ever, your body will always be able to adapt. So in an environment of ease and comfort, your body will turn weaker and less able. And in an environment that has moments of big challenge, that's when your body's going to adapt to be stronger. So no matter what phase you're in, whether you're in the trenches of that first phase, where you're like, where is the progress? Am I even doing this for anything? Or if you are in that center section where you're like, wow, I am doing amazing things. I had no idea I would ever be able to do this and not feel like it was that hard. Or if you're in that upper phase of, okay, where are these results? I know I'm in exceptional shape, but what is changing in my body? No matter what phase you're in, make sure that you are always pushing yourself with your workouts, challenging yourself with your exercise, making sure you're putting in the right inputs, putting in the right actions. And you will surely see those changes in that it's asking your body to adapt in the right direction.
So if you'd like our guidance on implementing these ideas within your own life on challenging your body, on improving your strength, that's exactly what we can help you do at Muscle Activation Schaumburg. We specialize in using muscle activation techniques to figure out where within your body you have muscles that aren't working as well as they should. We're able to get those muscles working better so you can move more easily, so you have greater strength output, and then we can start to really challenge your body with very specific strength training to build your strength consistently over time, day by day. So if that's of interest to you, if you're interested in getting started and working with us here at our studio, Muscle Activation Schaumburg, all you have to do is go to our website, www.matschaumburg.com. There's a big green button there that says Get Started. You can click that and you can schedule yourself for your initial MAT consultation and assessment. Well, thank you everybody for giving us your eyes, your ears on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, on YouTube. We really appreciate your time and attention. Share this episode with somebody that may feel like they're getting a little bit frustrated with the progress or lack thereof that they've been making with their fitness, with their health as of recent, and help them to understand the process of progress that nobody seems to be talking about. If you wouldn't mind leaving us a rating and review on any of those platforms, we truly appreciate it. We're wishing you a fantastic week, and we'll talk with you all next week.
This podcast is for information purposes only. The statements and views on this podcast are not medical advice. This podcast, including Julie and Charlie Gates, disclaim responsibility for any possible adverse effects from the use of information contained herein. Opinions of guests are their own, and this podcast does not endorse or accept responsibility for statements made by guests. This podcast does not make any representations or warranties about guest qualifications or credibility. This podcast may contain paid endorsements or advertisements for products or services. Individuals on this podcast may have a direct or indirect financial interest in products or services referred to herein. If you think you have a medical issue, consult a licensed physician.